Welcome, everybody. Here we are at the podcast. We've been gone a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Been a busy few weeks.
Very busy few weeks, but we're back and
Yay.
glad to be back with everybody. Had a tremendous Easter.
Oh, man.
We didn't come on post Easter.
No,
did
this
we?
is
have
it.
not.
So
Yeah,
this is the first one since
Yep.
Easter.
Yep.
Tremendous Easter.
Yes.
I think with our how many salvations Easter
20.
weekend? 20 on Easter weekend, which
Yep.
was fantastic. Broke our attendance record.
Yep.
With online, we were over 3,000 for
Yep.
the weekend, and in person was like
2,800.
2,800 and something, which is
Incredible.
a great number,
Yep.
and that's the biggest weekend we've ever seen
Indeed.
for sure. And 20 people getting saved. How do you top that? So it was just a great time to see everybody. On Easter, of course, you get some people coming in you haven't seen for a while, and we're just glad to just reunite and have a big time with everybody. Then the week after that, Clayton King was here. We saw 93, 95 people. I think it was 95 got saved and said yes to Jesus over those 4 services, which is incredible. Clayton is just a great guy. He has a tremendous gift for bringing people to Jesus. He's so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me of Billy Graham a lot, of how Clayton is just so simple and straightforward. And I hear him preach, and I think, I could do that. I could preach that. Just like I used to feel like listening to Billy Graham.
Right.
It's so simple. I think, yeah. But every time I hear somebody like that, I think Paul said, it wasn't with the excellent speech or clever words of men. I just preached Christ and Him crucified. And that's what Clayton does so well. 95 people raised a hand saying, I'm giving my life to Jesus. Incredible.
He's also a guy that's just just as humble as he can be, and I love getting a chance just to kind of hang out with him and talk to him for a few minutes, just because he's a normal guy. I mean, there's no entourage around him or anything like that. He is just he's a regular guy who's got a passion to preach and a gift to preach.
You can get speakers in. We don't have them, but I've heard of them who are really high maintenance and kind of diva.
Let's name some.
And I guess we could, but make all kind of demands. But Clayton is just a regular guy. Had 2 meals with him, and he's just the same guy outside of the pulpit as he is inside the pulpit, and just kind to people.
Yep.
Go to a restaurant with somebody, you'll find out who they are.
Yep.
I wouldn't put up 5 minutes with a pastor who could really preach in the pulpit. Then we go to the restaurant, and he treats the server badly.
Sure.
And I've seen preachers do that before, and it's just not Clayton. He's a genuine guy. So love that weekend.
And
so
we'll have him
much.
again. We'll have him back.
Certainly, we talked to him
yeah.
about coming every year, and I think it's just a great
Friend of the
day.
show.
That's
Yeah,
right.
a what?
He's a friend of the show.
He's a friend of the show. We might want to be friends with his show.
That's true too.
But yeah, just
We're a friend of the show. I guess
that's a great thing that we talk about doing every year, just
Yep.
as a push to see people come to Jesus. So bringing that evangelistic gift in every year is
Yes,
just
sir.
really, really powerful. Last week was wonderful as well. I was gone. I went to Dallas, Texas to share with a group of pastors early in the week about the Keep the Change book and the wonderful story of generosity to upward. That was very well received. In fact, I got 2 more trips planned coming out of that to share the same story. So that was really cool.
book tour.
Here we go.
It's not a book
How many
tour.
books did you sign?
0. I didn't sign any
Oh,
books.
Nobody got the
I didn't have
autograph.
any.
Oh,
They
that's
actually
right. That's right.
they actually
I forgot you were texting us late
they
Monday.
arrived-
night.
Anybody have the book?
they arrived the day after I got there.
That's
they were
right.
a little slow, but it was a great group. And just for the listeners, the Upward Story is I call it the Upward Story. I don't go around bragging and saying, hey, look at us. But what God has done here is making an impact in many churches. I was with a lot of church leaders from across the country, and they're really wanting to learn and see how to implement generosity. So anyway, there. And of course, this week I was visiting with my daughter and son-in-law in Memphis, Tennessee, where they work with a great church, and I was just so blessed to be there. But y'all had a great weekend here.
We did.
Greg did a fantastic job. I did not listen to his message, but I read it 3 or 4 times in the notes before he preached it, and I thought it was fantastic.
Helping to
Very
make it
well
better.
done.
Helping to make it better.
Well, we all do that. You may not know this, but Greg and I both review each other's notes before and always suggest improvements. If Greg ever comes back and says, I can't add anything, I know we've got a winner.
And that's happened several times, might I add.
Doesn't happen that often.
It's
but,
happened several
few.
times.
But yeah, we always help each other, and
We do.
all the guys who speak, we actually sit down and meet with all of them and go over messages and help improve them for everybody. So
I do love that process, man.
Me too.
Just personally for me, man, there is a renewed elevated sense of confidence stepping in to the pulpit, knowing that I've had somebody else review this with me, and it's not just things that are in my head, but man, there's somebody else who's like, yeah, this is how I would say it, or this sounds good.
Nothing comes into that pulpit on the notes anyway that hasn't been reviewed. Now I'm the worst one to launch out and just start into something that I didn't think about before, but being the lead pastor has privileges.
That's exactly right.
It makes the messages feel like much more of a team effort than I think people would think.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
They really
When you get
are.
up, by the time you get up there and talk, it's like, oh, I've picked up so much other stuff from the whole crew that this is,
People see things and hear things from different perspectives.
Totally,
and they're like, man, I want to hear what somebody who's 10, 15 years younger than me has to say about it, or somebody who's in a couple of years older than me and the wisdom that they can bring to it.
Yeah, Greg and I every week. Of course, I preach most every week, and Greg sees my notes on Thursday about 2:00 and gives me notes on it, and I go rewrite and do some adjusting. And then when Greg preaches, he's a little more ahead than I am. He'll get me notes by about Tuesday or Wednesday.
I don't have to preach every week, so it allows me that ability to be able to work on it a little ahead of time.
Yeah, when you do it every week, it is.
That's a different ball game.
The younger guys that preach, and Leanne's preached too, the younger folks that preach here, they give us typically an outline, but just so you'll know the process. Maybe we're way off script, but they give us an outline about 3 weeks out of what they're doing, and a scripture a little further out than that. They pick a scripture, give us an outline, and they meet with Greg and I. We help them process the outline for about a week, and then they come back with some work, and then about a week or two out, they'll get up on stage and preach the message to Greg and I, and we'll give a bunch of notes and try to shape it and help it. And we got great communicators here.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like they just are sitting back needing it, but we make each other better. And the younger voices make me a lot better. They'll cut an illustration out that nobody's heard of anymore. I'll never forget. It was about 5 years ago, I guess. I brought up Who Shot JR.
Oh, yeah, I remember this
And
one.
I said it, and I didn't have it in the notes either. I just said it because it was this phenomenon in TV in about 82 or 3 or something like that. Who Shot JR was everything. And some of the younger guys were like, what in the world was that? What does Who Shot JR even mean? And probably half of the people listening now don't
know who JR.
I'll tell you what happens when you get my age, and I'm not old, but I'm 57. You don't realize that the younger generation, they don't know that
connect.
stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, I need the younger voices in my life to help edit me and help bring clarity to messages. So,
who did shoot JR, by the way? I don't know.
Kristen.
Who was JR?
No, I know, but I know that.
Do you know that?
By
Okay.
virtue
Okay.
of this.
All right.
Kristen
By virtue-
shot JR.
Yeah.
In fact, it was Bing Crosby's daughter.
Oh,
Wow. Real life or show?
It was his real life daughter who was an actress.
Oh,
in
I
the
didn't
show.
know that. Okay.
She was
Wow.
Sue Ellen's sister,
There you go. If
who
you,
was JR's wife.
everybody
if you were-
35 and younger,
if you were
go
count-
Google.
If you were people know Bing Crosby.
I'm more talking about the show that it was a part
yeah.
of.
If you had us talking about Dallas on your bingo card, that's a rare one.
I was just in Dallas, and now
Yeah.
we're talking about
Now
it.
we're talking about it.
I'll tell you something totally embarrassing. The Dallas theme to that show, I was humming it when I landed in Dallas on the plane. Not very loud, but I was humming it in my head. I think about that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right.
Little too much
There we
authenticity
are.
here today.
So message this week, we focused really on baptism, and it was
We finally gotten to it.
Yeah.
15 minutes into the podcast.
We finally
This is
got
how
there.
this goes.
That's exactly right. So yeah, loved getting a chance to really talk about the value and the importance of baptism and why we do water baptism and what Paul has to say about it. Looking back at Jesus's baptism experience as well, it was a fun message to preach. I don't know if anybody else enjoyed it, but it was fun to preach.
When you have fun, they tend to have fun too.
Yeah.
So if you're having a good time, it's usually comes out. And what I saw in the notes, it was fantastic. Baptism's incredibly important.
Yeah.
The early church believed in that. You know, the early church baptized people when they were saved.
Yep.
It's important to know that a person can go to heaven without being baptized.
Bingo.
It can happen.
Right.
It's not an additional work that saves somebody. And the classic illustration is the thief on the cross. He did
Mhm.
not come down from the cross and be baptized. However, baptism is commanded, and baptism is an important part of the Christian faith. It symbolizes what happens when we get saved.
Exactly.
We die with Christ. We're buried with him in baptism, and we're raised up to new life again.
Yep.
And so it's a powerful symbol. It's also this very public declaration before the whole world
Yep.
that I am saved, and I'm publicly declaring Jesus as my Lord. It's just an incredible thing, and I urge every believer to be baptized. If you haven't been baptized, be baptized.
Exactly.
I was in a big church, my daughter's church, Sunday, and they had a new guy baptizing, and they have, this church is probably 8,000 people or more, so it's huge. They have a baptismal tank that's like the size of, it's bigger than this room that we're in right now. It's bigger than any of our offices, the baptismal tank.
Okay.
So they're baptizing, and they had a new guy who had not baptized before, and he baptized 2 people, and he missed covering their noses both times and put them under. And I was sitting there thinking, he missed another one. And that's what I was sitting there thinking. And then the pastor got up, and the pastor, first thing he said is, I know, he missed both of them.
That's why our method, we have them cover their nose.
That's right. They grab their own nose.
Except for that one time.
Except for that one time
We
that
take
didn't happen.
no responsibility for grabbing noses.
No
Just
responsibility
go.
for grabbing your nose. That's on you.
Well,
if you're getting baptized.
Coming out of preaching about baptism, obviously, there's not a way to be able to talk about everything that you want to talk about within the time frame that we have. So there were a couple of things that we didn't really get a chance to touch on, and thought the podcast might be a great place to be able to do it. So throw a couple questions out there, and we'll all just kind of discuss it a little bit. I think one question is that within the way that we do baptism by immersion. We push, take people all the way up under the water. There are other branches of Christianity that don't do immersion. They do, sprinkling or anything like that. Can we talk a little bit about why it is that we do immersion here at the church? Why do we baptize by immersion?
Well, you see it in the New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to say that everybody else's method is wrong.
Sure.
I have baptized people through sprinkling
Exactly.
before that were seriously ill
Mm-hmm.
and could not get down into water.
Mm-hmm.
I remember some years ago there was a person here who just said, I haven't been baptized. I want to get baptized, but was near death with cancer and just was not able to get into a tank or into anything. We tried to figure out ways, and we couldn't find a way. So we just sprinkle water over them. I've poured water over people before in buckets. We've done that. It may seem strange to people, but we believe in immersion because it's the perfect picture to me of going under and just being immersed. In the New Testament, they practice that. You see it with the Ethiopian eunuch on the journey with Philip meeting him in the desert, and they baptize. That's the way they did it, and that's how we do it. There are other ways. It may interest people to know that my parents were in the Methodist Church before they really came to Christ, and this is not anything derogatory about the Methodist Church. They were there in the Methodist Church. You can be in any church and not really have an experience with Jesus. You could be in Upward and not have an experience with Jesus. I'm sure there are some, but they were there, and I got baptized into the Methodist Church when I was a baby, and so I was sprinkled as a baby, and so there are people who do it differently, but we just see that New Testament picture of going under the water and coming up as a new person in Christ. It's a beautiful symbol.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of the whole body going up under the water and coming back up, it just kind of represents that symbolic deal of our entire lives being, sins being washed away. I love that.
When I did that person, I remember it's been many years ago, but when I sprinkled that person who had cancer, I told it in the pulpit as I normally do. And man, I got a really harsh email, not from a person at Upward. It was kind of a person passing through that just said that was so wrong and evil, and I was denying the faith and everything. And I thought, if I can sprinkle this guy who's dying with cancer, he wants to come to Jesus. I was okay with that, and I still am today.
Yeah. I mean, somebody wants to take that step, and there's some physical limitations there that don't allow him to go all the way up under the water. I don't think Jesus is looking down, shaking his finger at that.
He's certainly not.
Yeah.
Another question, and we get this from time to time as well, is the fact for us here at Upward, we look for individuals to make their own decision to be baptized. So we have kind of set an arbitrary age of 6 years old for a child before they can be baptized here. But we also know that there are other places where they do infant baptisms. But for us, we kind of lean towards a believer's baptism. Why is it that we look at it and we say, hey, we're waiting for an individual to make their own decision?
Well, I was baptized as I said, as a baby in the Methodist church, but when I was about 12, my parents had gotten saved. We were in another church that baptized by immersion, and I chose to get baptized, and I did. I really came to Christ as an adult when I was 19 years old. I prayed a prayer when I was 7 or 8, got baptized, but as an adult coming to Christ, I was 19 when I made that decision to follow Jesus, So I was baptized before then. Some people may think I need to get baptized again. Some people may be watching and say, that's it. That's what's wrong with him. He needs to get baptized again. I did not. I was baptized in the Methodist church, and then I got baptized by a pastor when I was about 12.
Yeah.
And the reason of mine was, and I think it's true for why we do it, is that I wanted to make that decision consciously.
Yeah.
I have no memory of being baptized as a baby. I have a picture of it, and I had no choice in that. And I think it's important for people to make that choice consciously because it's important for them to understand what salvation is and what is happening symbolically as they're baptized. So we get a number of people who come and say, I got baptized when I was a kid.
Right.
And some of them were sprinkled, some of them were immersed as a kid. And they said, I just did it. I didn't really know what it meant. Now I'm an adult. I want to be baptized in full knowledge of what it means. And we often do that.
Yeah. Very good. So I guess that kind of leans into the next part right there. What would you say to somebody who's thinking that they want to be baptized again? Maybe they got baptized as a kid, or maybe it was a teenager or something like that, and they want to be baptized again. Is that okay? And from your vantage point, is it okay to be baptized a second time?
Yes, I think that's okay. I do. I think if they're struggling with just insecurity in their faith, and they would say, well, I sinned, I need to get baptized again. Christians fall and Christians fail and they repent and come back. It doesn't mean your salvation didn't work and you need to be baptized again. If you get baptized over and over again, and we don't see a lot of people asking for that, but if you were in that state, I would say, hey, hold off here.
Yeah.
Seek God's restoration and forgiveness and receive it and walk in God's grace going forward, but don't get baptized again. But for the person who feels like they hadn't, most of the time when I hear a person who had an adult conversion and really realize what it meant and want to be baptized with a consciousness of what that means, I say yes, it's okay to be baptized again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the line is what you said. If you are sitting there as an adult, you've been baptized, even maybe when you can remember it, and you're thinking, man, I've messed up and come back to God or whatever, and this is going to make me right again, then don't do it again, because then you don't have a good understanding of what baptism is. You know, baptism is the result of the change that has happened in our lives. It's not the pin you pull out that makes it all change, basically. So don't do it if you're doing it as an act of like, this is going to make me right before God. Yeah, again, there's no like one size fits all answer here. Everything is person by person for the most part, but yeah, I think that's the line you have to tread carefully. You want to understand what it is and understand that, you know, because you messed up or because you went through a difficult season in your life, baptism is not for that.
Right. I think when it comes to this question, if there's someone listening who's questioning that right now, I would say come in and talk to a pastor, talk to one of us, and have a conversation. It's not we're drawing up a rule book here and every condition that can exist. I think you figure it out as you sit down and talk with a person and hear their heart and hear their own unique situation about what they're going through and counsel them individually. And we're certainly open to talking to anybody who's struggling with that question.
Yep. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Love it. Very good.
Yeah, good time. We start a series this week in the book of Philippians. We're going to talk about the joy that can exist even as a prisoner. Paul wrote the book of Philippians as he was imprisoned for his faith. And man, if I'd written a book in that situation, I might have written a book of whining and complaining about how I didn't deserve this and how they did me wrong.
I'm innocent.
Yeah, I'm innocent. Paul did not do that. He wrote a book that just said, hey, I'm having a joyful time even in the midst of this. So, and I think Christians need that so badly right now. We need the joy of Jesus, for the word says it is our strength.
Yep.
And so we're going to learn about that over the next few weeks. It's going to be fun.
Looking forward to it.
It's going to be good. Thank y'all so much for being a part of the podcast. Love y'all very much, and we'll hopefully see y'all next week.